morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining us today. Our Corinne True Center Baha'i History Book Club has over 285 members from many countries, and we are so pleased that so many of you have joined us today. We are very pleased to have the opportunity today to discuss the book, The Art of Empowering Others, The Life and Times of Gayle Abbas Woolson, Knight of Baha'u'llah, with the author Juliet Gentzkow and a special friend Tarasieh Werle Vahdat and Marta Rosales from Ecuador. So as I sent you in the resources, there's a prayer that the House of Justice says is a mark of recognition of the power of the hand of omnipotence to turn gnats into eagles. And they write this in reference to the Knights of Baha'u'llah. So I've asked Robert to kindly read that prayer for us.
O God, my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest.
Thank you, Robert. So I'd like to introduce Juliet Gentzkow first. Juliet studied comparative religion as an undergraduate at Harvard University. She was the director of a small school for 13 years, after which she served in Guyana for 4 years and Haiti for 1, learning to implement the Ruhi Institute process in 2 distinctive cultures. A social work degree then opened the door to accompanying people at all stages of the life cycle, including work with families and children, and then intensive work in hospice and bereavement care. More recently, she focused on biographical writing. This is her first book, and she's working on a second book about the life and times of Dr. Helen Elsie Austin. I'm just looking to see if my friend Tarasieh has joined. I don't see her, but when she joins, Tarasieh Werle Vahdat has been a pioneer in Ecuador since 1972. She is a glass artist who has participated in several solo and group exhibitions, both nationally and internationally, receiving important recognition for her work. And Marta Rosales is here with us. She is a dear friend of Gayle Woolson's, and she's from Ecuador, and we're very, very happy to have her with us. So let me also welcome Robert Stockman, the director of the Corinne True Center for Baha'i History. All the work that we do in the book club is carried out under his loving support and guidance. Rob received his doctorate in theology from the Harvard Divinity School, where I first met him. He has published 7 books on the faith and is a professor at Indiana University in South Bend, Indiana. So Rob and I will start with a few questions, as we usually do, and then we'll open it up for questions from our book club members. Rob, let me turn it over to you first.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kisu, and I'm delighted to be here, and it's good to see you again, Juliet, after meeting you for the first time at Greenacre back in June. And I was delighted to read the book. It was actually a very quick, easy read. It's nicely organized. It's clearly written. It's got a lot of great pictures. And I very much appreciated it from that point of view. I've met Gayle myself when I moved to Wilmette in 1990. And I was actually in Evanston and saw her at feasts and holy days and at the house of worship. And I should add that I was very interested in talking to her about her Divine Symphony book. And she provided me with a letter she'd received from the Guardian, which listed Krishna as a manifestation of God. And that was the first time I'd actually seen an official statement listing Krishna as a manifestation of God. He's not listed in God Passes By, for example. So I was delighted, and that's one of my most precious memories of Gayle, who was an intrepid, amazing, determined, confident woman, and far really a gnat into an eagle. Really, just it was so impressive to meet her. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you decided, how you became an author and how you decided to write the book.
Sure. Thank you, Rob. First of all, I'd just like to thank you and Gisu for creating this amazing constellation of communion between souls in this world and the next, because it really feels that way. And it's a gift to have dear Tarasieh, Vahdat, whom I see now is on, and also Marta Rosales, who are part of the program. They're from Ecuador, and they're part of this story. Thinking about a little about myself that pertains to writing this biography, I thought of a story from early in my life. As World War II was beginning, my aunt opened the first children's theater in London, which is still operative as the Unicorn Children's Theater. After the war, the mobile country put the theater into a large truck and traveled around to many villages in England where children had never seen theater. They would invite children to take part in the plays. One day, a frail little girl tentatively raised her hand and was invited forward. There was a murmur that moved through the audience. Later, when she came out on stage in her angel costume, she walked confidently and said her lines perfectly. A gasp went up from the audience in one breath. The child had been struck dumb in the first bombings in London and had not spoken a word until that time after the war. That experience instilled in me, that story instilled in me a longing to understand how to create environments where such deep healing may take place, where souls may find their true voice, where their angelic nobility may shine. It was a powerful experience then to learn of Baha'u'llah, and that there is a power in this cause, far, far, far above the ken of men and of angels. As to learning to write biography, it is an ongoing journey as it is for all of us. In a way, my whole life, as Gisu outlined, has been teaching me and helping me learn about people's lives, gifts, and struggles. So in a way, turning to writing about lives was a natural transition. As to the writing itself, the 50 boxes of Mrs. Woolson's papers, together with the sacred writings and family, friends, and books, became my teachers. Gayle Woolson recognized the historic significance of the Guardian's plans as the unfolding of a new worldwide spiritual civilization. Her papers, year by year, reflected her response and participation in this process, as well as that of the individuals and institutions she served. Therefore, the research became a combined study of both the call and the response of the Guardian and the believers and institutions, together with studying contemporaneous events. The hope, the intent in the book was to tell the story as much as possible in her own voice. People in this forum have spoken of another element in the process that seems common to us all who are doing this work. Angelina Allen spoke of it beautifully when she told of holding a piece of paper of John Bosch, on which he had made a timeline of his life as a Baha'i. And she spoke of that moment as entering a private and I would say sacred space where we see the personal reflections of the person that we're trying to learn about. Therefore, the research became a combined study of both the call of the institutions and of the guardian and the response of believers and institutions. I'm sorry, one other aspect of that private, that inner process we go through. Susan Engel spoke of the feeling of the presence of the souls she was researching, of calling upon them for help. We probably all can recount times of being led to passages or books or people of which we were previously unaware. So there seems to be a part of it, a part that's academic and storytelling and practical, and another one that sometimes feels like something coming from somewhere else.
So that's okay. I was wondering whether you were
I
finished.
hope that answers the question.
Yeah. That's quite a remarkable answer, really. And so you mentioned that Gayle had 50 boxes of papers. Must have taken a
All in
long,
plastic bags and paper clips and pieces and labels, yes.
not organized in nice, neat Hollinger boxes the archives uses. That's
And
amazing.
not as small.
So you had to go through it all pretty much yourself, sheet of paper by sheet of paper. How did you take notes? How did you keep track of all this information and especially the little tidbits? Because you always find these little tidbits. You say, "Oh, I can't forget that," and I've got to know where to find it later.
You know, there was something about those tidbits that always held a story. So one never forgot them, and a couple of them come up later.
That's good.
Yeah, the rest, it's beyond it was files and files. And then, of course, they all had to be turned over. So it was scanning and.
Did you keep notes on a computer? Did you take the notes with a dictator, a dictation machine, or computer? Yeah, that's the only way to really easily do.
Yeah.
Typing it all in. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. How did you decide what to include and what to leave out? That's always one of the biggest challenges when you're writing anything.
Oh, that's out of order. Okay. Thank you, Rob, for the question. It's a really deep question, and it was one I had to think a lot about. I thought partly by reflecting on the hidden words and reading Memorials of the Faithful, and then looking at the compilation on speech, and then especially the letter that we have from the House of Justice, the statement about things that authors should keep in mind and the standard for writing biography. And yes. So I'll give, for those who have written, I'm sorry to be a little bit out of sync. So I had to think about certain items that came up. One was early in the book when she, as a young person, has become a Baha'i, and then the very people that taught her the faith, there's a divorce of Dr. Woolson and his wife, Leona. And it was a fact in the story that had to be told. So it was intentionally told as simply as possible, and yet putting the information in that needed to be there. And then at the same time, choosing to include there her remarkable service to the faith, the fact that Louis Gregory had praised her work in the neighborhoods of color when he came through, and a couple of other things about her, just to ensure that the impression was true to her service to the faith. And then a couple of examples about protection in the cause in South America. During the period of time she was serving in Ecuador, it was the period of the ministry of the custodians. And so there were some issues that had to be dealt with, and she was serving the auxiliary board and some aspects of protection. And so it was a necessary part of the history. There were more details available than were used, but the purpose was really to show the incredible service of the hands and their dedication, their care to every individual, and the specificity of their instructions to someone like her who had to go and talk with people about issues. And Mr. Fazey drew a diagram on a piece of paper that was in her papers that showed her exactly step by step how to explain the station of the guardian. And so it was trying to find the combination. Also, her obedience to the instructions of the hands was precise and never strayed from there, and her reports documented that. So it was a leaving in and a taking out. And then there was, if I could just share two other things. One was a long letter from Mr. Fazey was left in, that was written shortly after the election of the Universal House of Justice. It's his letter, it's a big letter. But what was hoped was that it would show how the hands of the cause did not stop at all after the election, after the ministry, how he went on this worldwide tour, how he went back to Iran and visited children he had educated in their early years. And also that he wrote this letter typed to Gayle alone as an individual, but he wrote such things to many, many others. So it's the personal nature which shows an example of the nurturing of the hands during the entire time. And then the one of the things I left in was allowing the family to speak of her at the funeral, because then they came to feel a part of the book itself, and then they all asked for copies to read the book, and many of them were not yet Baha'is. So
that sounds like a good strategy then. That worked. Sounds like that worked well. Where did the title come from? How did you choose that?
That was May Hoffman. She named it. And in our conversation, this is generally what was thought. The story is about how the revelation of Baha'u'llah empowers the world. And the beloved guardian, through his plans and correspondence, empowered the believers in the plan. And then to the degree to which we see the early believers obey the plan, they become instruments of empowering others.
It's a marvelous title, because it reminds me very much of her effort with the children that you talk about. In one chapter, one of my wife's second cousin's 11-year-old sons performed one of the Holy Day observances at the house of worship under her tutelage. And it was quite something to see. And she really was marvelous with children and a dedicated servant right to the end. So I'll turn it over now to Gisu for some other questions.
Thank you, Rob. And that's a wonderful introduction to talking about Mrs. Woolson. Juliet, how would you describe the very different phases of Gayle Woolson's life?
There was the period up through her childhood and youth to when she learned of the faith. And after the faith, almost immediately, she was serving on the local spiritual assembly. And from then on, one really divides the phases of her life into the plans of the guardian, because everything was directed by that. And then later in her life, following the time in Haifa when she came home, her service became less administrative, but not any the less integral to the teaching work. And even her research, her writing, her work with the children, everything was devoted to teaching. And even in her very last days and hours, children came to sing to her, and she was conscious, and she was teaching in the hospice to her last breath. So
she was marvelous. One of our favorite parts of our book club conversation is to have the authors pick their favorite passages and read them to us. So could you read us one of your favorite passages and tell us why it's a favorite?
I'm going to ask if I could have two brief ones, one
Of
about
course.
teaching and one about protection,
Of course.
because one of them is a passage from Marta Rosales, who's here. The first is about Rufino Gualavisi Ferranango. Rufino Gualavisi, a renowned indigenous Baha'i teacher, died March 23, 1990 in Otavalo, Ecuador. Mr. Gualavisi taught the faith to thousands of indigenous people and campesinos and helped open many difficult areas of the country to the faith, often accompanied by his spiritual father and teaching companion, Counselor Raul Pavon. Although beaten and imprisoned at various times, he remained steadfast and never once wavered in his teaching efforts. He is buried in the cemetery Parques del Recuerdo in Quito. On the left side and adjoining the resting place of his good friend and staunch admirer, the hand of the cause of God, Rahmatullah Muhajir. On learning of Mr. Gualavisi's passing, the Universal House of Justice cabled the National Spiritual Assembly of Ecuador. Deeply saddened, new passing outstanding sacrificial teacher, cause God, Rufino Gualavisi. His noble qualities, his loving nature, his immense services, indigenous masses, native land, never to be forgotten, and worthy source pride your community. Urge holding befitting memorial meetings, his blessed memory, throughout country. Assure fervent prayers, holy threshold, for progress his radiant soul, kingdom on high. Kindly extend heartfelt condolences, family and friends. And the reason that's one of my favorites is that when Gayle Woolson and other such pioneers come to know these souls, they saw in them the members of a new civilization. And that was part of the empowerment. And the guardian constantly called to the friends to teach the indigenous believers. And so it moves me to tears that this indigenous soul was such pure gold, and that he had the privilege of being laid to rest beside the hand of the cause. And the second passage is about the time of the guardian's passing, and it is written by Marta Rosales. She writes, when in 1957 our beloved guardian died, Gayle became one of the strongest soldiers of the cause of the Blessed Beauty. I remember that the people gathered to pray and cry bitterly over the passing of the guardian. Gayle was a catalyst for the small community of Quito to overcome its grief and prove that the Baha'i world was alive. After the ascension of our beloved guardian, the gatherings in the historic district stopped. The community went through various tests and difficulties with various covenant breakers. All of this was in the 50s and the beginning of the 60s of the last century. And I chose that because of what it says and because Marta Rosales was a child of 6 when she knew Gayle, and she received her songs and words and games. And she writes in another place that only later did she realize what deep spiritual import those things had.
Those are beautiful passages, Juliet. Thank you. I remember Rufino so well and so happy to have him mentioned here in our gathering today. And of course, our beloved Raul Pavon. And one of my favorite photographs of my father is with Rufino. So I'm so happy to have that as one of the passages. And of course, Gayle's staunchness in the covenant. Tarasieh is with us and Martha Rosales is with us. And I was wondering if the two of you would like to share some of your memories of Mrs. Woolson and what impact she had on the Ecuador Baha'i community. Please.
Well, thank you very much. I would say I give the floor to Marta Rosales. I'm trying to get in contact by WhatsApp.
She's here with us on screen. I can see her.
I can't see anybody.
No, I can see her.
Yeah. So, Marta, si quieres tú contar tus experiencias y te puedo ayudar a traducir.
Con mucho gusto. Queridas hermanos y hermanos, al agua fa. Soy Marta Rosales Toro Moreno. Nací en Quito, Ecuador. Hoy estoy viviendo en Estados Unidos, de Norteamérica.
Well, Marta is presenting herself and she's telling she was born in Ecuador, but right now she is living in United States.
Lamentablemente soy la única persona viva de esa época, de ese grupo de personas.
Sadly, I am the only person living from that time I got to know Gayle Woolson.
Que puedo contarles estos recuerdos en la época de los 50 del siglo XX.
And I'm the only one who can relate everything that happened. That was mid-19th century, 1950s, where I was a child.
Qué maravillosos recuerdos de mi niñez. Cuando
But happy and marvelous remembrance of this time.
Cuando tenía la edad de 5 años,
when I was 5 years old,
fuimos a vivir en la casa del centro histórico.
We moved to the old part of Quito. They call it Centro Histórico.
Mi madre, Hilda Toro Moreno Dávalos.
My mother, Ellen Toro Moreno Dávalos,
era muy amiga de la señora Amadita de Argüello.
She was very good friend, very close friend of another lady.
Se llevaban como hermanas.
They were just like two sisters.
Estoy hablando de una de las primeras Bahá'ís de Quito.
She was one of the first Baha'is of Quito. Marta, ¿podrías repetir el nombre de ella, por favor?
Amada de Argüello.
Yeah, Amada de
Amada
Argüello.
de
Yeah.
Argüello. El esposo era Luis Argüello.
Her husband was Luis Argüello. Yes, I got to know him.
Toda
Later.
la familia Baha'i,
All the
todas
family was Baha'i.
dedicados mucho a la enseñanza.
They dedicated entirely to teaching the
Con
faith.
Gayle Golson, con Gayle Golson salían a la enseñanza.
They used to go for teaching with Gayle Woolson.
Era una familia muy ejemplar.
It was an exemplary family.
En las calles Cotopaxi y Olmedo, donde quedaba esta casa,
And the streets, Cotopaxi and Olmedo in downtown Quito,
tiene la fe Baha'i, mucha historia para la fe Baha'i, mucha historia.
there
De su-
contains a lot of history and about the Baha'i faith there,
donde eran las primeras reuniones
where there were the very first Baha'i meetings.
en la casa de la señora Amadita, que se les recibía con mucho cariño y con mucho amor, donde se celebraban las fiestas de 19 días, los días sagrados, se reunían para orar y para leer los escritos sagrados.
In their house, that was the meeting place to celebrate 19-day feast, the festivities, and devotionals.
Y tenían conversaciones significativas.
And they had very deep conversations.
Gracias a Dios por haber tenido el privilegio de conocer a mi madre espiritual, Gayle Golson.
And I thank God that I had the chance and the privilege to get to know my spiritual mother, Gayle Woolson.
Era un ángel de bondad.
She was really an angel.
Ella fue una
I
mujer,
mean, yeah, sigue por favor.
ella fue una mujer llena de felicidad, de alegría, de paz, de tranquilidad.
She was a woman, happy woman, peaceful, and always very open to everybody.
Nunca la vi enojada.
I never saw her in a bad mood.
Siempre con su sonrisa en sus labios.
Y siempre with a smile on her lips.
Cuando estaba en las reuniones, cuando habían las reuniones, iba en su carro color batito.
Whenever there was a meeting, she used to travel with her car. I can't remember which color. Yeah.
Y los niños hacíamos fila para saludarla.
No, so we, the children, used to stay in a file, in a row, to give her to greet her.
Y recibir un beso de ella. Era nuestra alegría.
And our happiness was to receive a kiss from her, to be kissed by her.
Mi madre, Hilda Toro Moreno Dávalos, y la señora Marita de Argüello, no, le visitábamos en la sede Baha'i, en la Mariana de Jesús.
Yeah, my mother and the lady, we used to visit her at the Baha'i house, the first Baha'i house, not that what we have right now. It was in the street Mariana de Jesús.
Donde ella vivía.
She used to live there.
Nos recibía con tanto amor, con tanta alegría cuando llegábamos.
She used to receive us with so much love and so much kindness whenever we used to arrive.
Nos brindaba, a los niños nos brindaba un vaso de leche y un pedazo de pastel.
We children would receive a glass of milk and a sweetmeat.
A los mayores un té y un pedazo de pastel.
And the older ones would be attended with a cup of tea and a sweetmeat.
Nosotros íbamos a jugar en el jardín, los niños,
We children would run to the garden, a small garden actually, to play.
y Gay se quedaba con las personas mayores para enseñar las enseñanzas de nuestra amada fe.
And Gayle would stay inside the Baha'i house with the adults in order to teach them about the faith.
Era tan inteligente que enseñaba indirectamente, porque muchas personas eran muy católicas, apostólicas y romanas, como se llamaban en el Ecuador.
She was very intelligent how to approach the people and how to teach, because the majority of the people, they were, as they used to say before, católico, apostólico,
Y romano.
y romano. That's right. That's always, I used to hear that too. Yeah.
Gay siempre se dedicó a la enseñanza, a la fe. Fue una mujer increíble, una persona maravillosa.
Gayle dedicó todo su tiempo a la enseñanza de la fe. Era una...
Gayle dedicated all her time to teaching the faith.
Yes, she was dedicated. She used to dedicate her time entirely to teach the faith. She was a marvelous and very deep, with deep knowledge in the Baha'i faith.
Enseñaba con el ejemplo.
She used to teach with example.
Yo puedo decir que ella derramaba amor por todo lado.
I can say that she really showed love to wherever she went.
Era una luz.
She was light.
La vida de nuestra amada Gayle Woolson fue entregada al servicio de la causa de Dios.
The life of our beloved Gayle Woolson was entirely dedicated to teach the faith.
Todo lo que les he contado hoy, yo ya escribí en Facebook, mandé a Facebook, pero voy a contar algo que no he contado. Algo muy hermoso para mí, muy lindo.
Everything that I was telling you right now is mentioned in the Facebook, in her page in Facebook, but there is something she has not mentioned which she wants now to share with us.
Que cuando yo tengo problemas, me acuerdo de este pasaje de mi vida y me da ánimo y valor para seguir adelante.
Whenever I'm under much tension and I can't dedicate to teach, yeah.
Con el perdón de ustedes, yo me siento bendecida.
With your permission, I want to say that I'm really, let's say, blessed, absolutely blessed.
Cuando nuestra amada Rugía Cano, esposa de nuestro amado guardián, mano de la causa de Dios, llegó al Ecuador en marzo de 1968,
When in March 1968, Ruhia Khanum visited us
con doña Violeta Nagzavani,
with her companion, Mrs. Nakhjavani.
Gayle Coulson tuvo la gentileza, el amor, el cariño de invitarme al hotel que llegó Rugía Cano, Violeta Nayavani, Gayle Coulson y yo estuvimos en el hotel Otavalo.
Gayle Woolson had the kindness and the generosity to invite Martha to accompany her, Juliet Khanum, and Mrs. Nahjavani to the Hotel Otavalo at that time.
Era una suite de 2 personas que estaba Rogia Cannon y Violeta Nayavani. En el otro estaba Gayle Golson y yo.
There were 2 suites. One, there was Ruhia Khanum and Mrs. Nahjavani used to stay, and Gayle Woolson and Martha.
Había tantas personas, hubieron tantos niños, tantos jóvenes, pero Gayle Golson fue mi madre espiritual, es y seguirá siendo mi luz. Y bueno, para mí fue tan hermoso esto, tan lindo, y después de la visita de Rogia Cannon, después de poco tiempo, ya se fue al Centro Mundial, ya nos despedimos con abrazos. Ustedes comprenderán, hasta ahí puedo contarles, pero he sido bendecida por Dios por tener tanta maravilla dentro de la fe Baha'i.
There were so many children there, but I was chosen as the only one to accompany them. And I feel so blessed to have been with them. And afterwards, Gayle was summoned to the Holy Land, and that was the last time they were together.
Algo más, nunca fui pionera ni maestra vejera, pero siempre me dediqué a la enseñanza. En mis tiempos de vacaciones, en los fines de semana, salía a la enseñanza porque me encantaba la enseñanza.
And something else, I never went as a travel teacher, but I dedicated always my time and weekends in teaching and being with other people in order to give them the message.
Muchísimas gracias por escucharme y gracias por invitarme.
And
Al
thank you
agua,
very
pa.
much. And thank you very much for inviting me and listening to my story.
Y muchísimas gracias a usted para estar con nosotros. Y Tarasieh, thank you so much for the marvelous translations. Back to you, Juliet. You know, the objective of the Baha'i History Book Club is to enable the participants to gain inspiration and to learn lessons from the lives that we're reading about so that we can better serve the 9-year plan. How is the book relevant to the 9-year plan? And what did you learn that inspired your life? And what inspiration and action do you think we as readers should take from it? You're on mute, Juliet.
Gayle Woolson heard Dorothy Baker at one of the conventions when she said, "Blessed are they who follow guidance." And that was really the essence of her intent in her life. And I think we can carry those stories into our own lives now. Another thing that she taught or she said when asked about what she considered when making decisions was to know the value of time. And it seems that the value of our guidance from the House of Justice is its effect is not only on our comprehending, but on our understanding the timing of things. Another thing I think from the book that is relevant is that the House of Justice is encouraging us to learn to move populations forward and closer to Baha'u'llah. From Martha Root's first trip around South America in 1919 to 1963, the Central and South American and Caribbean communities moved a population from 0 believers to having 21 national spiritual assemblies. The history of response to the Guardian's plans holds a power, it seems, that commands one, if sitting to stand, if standing to walk, if walking to run, and then perhaps to fly, in this time as well as that one. So you wanted now the inspiration and action as well?
Yes.
Okay, so I was thinking just of a few things. We could probably think of a lot together. Catherine McLaughlin, who visited Ecuador, once said, I was recently told, to a group of youth, how would you feel if you could wake up every morning and look to your bedside table and find a message from God telling you exactly what to do that day? And then she said, that's exactly what we have in the messages of the House of Justice. And I believe we're being encouraged in this time to put more and more emphasis on our study together and individually. That's one thing. Another, I think, is thinking about Marta Rosales and what she shared with us. For us to think of encouraging every child who crosses our path and think of a way of giving them something, a phrase, a prayer, a story that will help their spirits grow. And the last thing that came to mind is not in the book, but it's a 2-page talk that Mr. Kaze gave in Quito during the ministry of the custodians. And in it, he was explaining to the believers what the hands were doing. And he said, we are carrying an embryo and keeping it safe. We're carrying an embryo and keeping it safe so that its birth will be safe. And so it made me think, collectively around the planet, we are carrying an embryo and trying to keep it safe, an embryo of a new civilization. Thank you.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Juliet. Thank you, Tarasieh. Thank you, Marta. I know everyone has questions for all of you, so let me turn it over to Rob to lead the discussion. Rob, you're on mute.
Thanks. I will go check the chat right now and see what we've got. And we have, of course, Tarasieh asked us to record it, and it is being recorded, so that's been taken care of. And we have the comment by Heather to always hear Juliet speak. She was appreciating that. So that's what we've got so far, so I hope we have some more questions. I was curious if, Juliet, you could answer a question. She was on the first National Spiritual Assembly for all of South America. And I can't imagine how you do that. I mean, there was no long-distance telephone service, I suspect, between some of those countries at the time. There was barely plane service. I mean, that hadn't been that, of course, during the first 7-year plan, but at least now she could get on planes and fly sometimes. I don't know how long the mails would take to send a letter from, say, Ecuador to Argentina. Do you have any other information about that experience that you can share with us? I was sort of looking through the book, and I was very curious to know more about that. I saw that they met, 4 times one year. You're muted.
You've said a lot of it, Rob, and it must have been by the Holy Spirit and dedication, because you're right. They had this correspondence. They had a few meetings. It was hard to get to. And the one thing that I have found is the minutes and reports of the convention of the National Spiritual Assembly of South America. And what's remarkable is how much was accomplished and how the committees were set up and how everything was functioning, even if in embryonic form. But you're right, it had to be assisted by some other force, I would say. And then the careful guidance.
Was Gayle the secretary at one point of that assembly? I was under the impression maybe she was, but then I didn't
At
see that in
one
the book.
point, yes, yes. And then, of course, she followed and was on when it split to regional assemblies, she served on that, and then the National Spiritual Assembly of Ecuador.
Yeah, that's amazing. Debbie says, I think the types of activities that were listed in the book that took place in meeting clubs and people in town, etc., could potentially be modified to be used in our efforts for community building. What do you think?
I think exactly. We had a question that we didn't talk about her sweeping through like a queen and working like an unpaid serf. And what is being asked is exactly that those early believers had mastered the art of encompassing a community, of knowing the organizations, of knowing how to get publicity. And they also followed up. I mean, the correspondence that those people had was incredible. If they had a community and they had 25 contacts, they wrote 25 letters and more than one. So indeed, those things do hold a lot of potential to inspire us.
That really is amazing. And of course, Christine pointed out that Gayle was an auxiliary board member as well as serving on the National Spiritual Assembly at the same time for quite a while. That is
For a
also,
time, and then
yeah,
it changed,
also.
yes.
Also quite an amazing, amazing dedication to do that. Do you have any other information, for example, about some of the challenges the faith faced in Ecuador at the time? We've heard about covenant breakers. Did that apparently dissipated fairly quickly, is my impression. Then I'll get to Dorcas's question.
Yeah, it was an intense period of time. And one of the things that I didn't realize until learning about this was that Mason Remy actually made a teaching trip all around South America. So he had a lot of contact and a lot of people were aware of him.
Wow.
And so it was, I mean, yeah, in the book, it talks about one instance where there was a problem in Quito and she just had surgery in Minnesota and was called back and came back because of what dear Marta has described, that she did have a wisdom about how to bring the believers together. But it was also the wisdom of Mr. Kaze and all of the hands in how they guided this process of, on the one hand, allowing a soul every chance to respond and to align themselves, and yet being clear-eyed about the standards. But it went on. I mean, even up to the day of the election of the NSA of Ecuador. It was.
Oh.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dorcas. Let's hear your question, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's not really a question. I remember Miss Woolson, you know, living in Chicago, and the thing that I remember the most is her. I remember being in Foundation Hall, and I think it was Foundation Hall at the House of Worship, and I remember the children that came up and spoke, and I've never seen anything like it. I have those kids, they oh my God, they were reciting, to me they were reciting books. You know, it was just, I don't, you know, when it talks about you can memorize things, it was just beautiful. It was just beautiful. And you know, she was right there to support them. You know, I remember her being, you know, real small, you know, and I'm just thinking, you know, I knew she loved those children because of their response to her. And it was just, I never seen anything like it. It was just amazing. I haven't seen anything since then. And golly, it was so cool. So I just admired her so much, and I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was exactly my experience at one of those Holy Day observances as well. It was really quite amazing to watch the kids recite entire speeches from memory. Yeah.
And that chapter, The Other Side of the Coin, in the book, talks about, I didn't realize until I found that tape made to Dr. Samuel McClellan, how deep this went for her, and how she had this deep conviction that, as she says in the chapter, the character of the child, the kingdom of God can be built within the character of the child through this process. And then I'd just like to remark that she was very particular about the children and not putting hands in pockets and standing straight. And so it meant a lot when I found a picture that Gayle had saved that you've seen in the book of a group of children standing on some steps in a children's class. And the teacher has on a tie, and one little boy has a tie. And that little boy wearing the tie ended up on the Universal House of Justice.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell, that was quite a picture. That was quite a picture. I really like that as well.
So it has something to do with it all, but with love. I think it's the love.
Yeah. What other comments and questions do we have? Do other people have memories of her? I'd love to hear some more memories. I suspect some of the people here. Please go ahead, Baha'i Mitchell.
Yes, yes, I do remember Mrs. Woolson very, very well. But the one comment about her, you see her with this beautiful smile on her face, and she would say, yes, dear, okay, dear. But she had a razor sharp. When she targeted something, she went at it. And she would call 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Okay, dear, do you remember we discussed this? Now, what about it? What has happened since then? She really put me to shame all the time because she went after that goal. And the other thing that, other than having the children stand straight and be very polite and memorize all of these things, she wanted to hear them. She would have them stand at the end of the room and say, dear, I can't hear you. You need to speak louder. And really, these children who used to mumble prayers and say it very fast, and nobody heard them anywhere at feast, by the time she finished with them a year later, they were speaking where everybody could hear them, and they were speaking very clearly. And
that's marvelous. Thanks. Thank you so much, Bahia. That's very poignant. Go ahead, Christine. Christine Leonard, you're muted. There you go.
Several things. The entire time I was reading the book, Juliet, was just, I had remembered meeting her, and I still haven't pinpointed exactly when it was. Sometime when I was a teenager, probably when I was volunteering in Wilmette. I'm not sure if that was too early, but the thing I was looking through the entire history was any intersections with my great aunt Leonora, who was in Brazil. And of course, there were all these possibilities, and then yet I never saw Leonora popping up within Gayle's story. And then I realized, well, actually, it would have been the connection of Margot Werle being elected to that same early group of NSAs as one of the Brazilian representatives. And because Margot had learned about the faith as a 15, 16-year-old girl in Bahia from Leonora, that there was a bit of an intersection there. But I realized also the depth of work that had to be done in those early days, as you've already discussed, with like the voluminous correspondence and stuff. But I think the most poignant part is the part where she left her post in Quito in order to fulfill Shoghi Effendi's goal of arriving at her post in the Galapagos, even though they kept saying, no, we can't have a woman. No, this gentleman's going, no, we can't have a woman, over and over and over. Yet she persevered, and because she felt inside herself that it was not going to work out right for the man to get there. And that to me was incredible. Her trust, her total trust in Baha'u'llah, to have this woman that she'd asked to go with her so that they would be two women instead of a single woman alone in this really very dangerous place. Just that to me was humongous. Her total trust in Baha'u'llah and her movement. She just kept moving through that, and then was there for 2 months and living with all the deprivations that it would have entailed, like a camping trip. Just really emphasized for me just pure devotion and trust in Baha'u'llah, I guess.
She made it possible for the man to go later too.
Exactly.
She opened it up, found the
And
place.
then Shoghi Effendi said, okay, you can be a Knight of Baha'u'llah too, you know, because you were planning to be there. I'm like, wow, that was cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yep. Sally, go ahead, please, and make your comment. And I don't know, Gisu, whether we can keep going. I assume we'll be able to do Fran as well after.
Of course.
Sally.
Well, this is quick. I had the unbelievable dumb luck. I was a pioneer in South America for a long time. And on one of my visits to Wilmette way back when, I just happened upon Gayle Woolson, who was doing some kind of a session in Foundation Hall, I guess it was. I don't remember the details, but it was about the teaching the children. I don't think the children were there. I think she was talking about the project or something. And my memory is that I wanted to go hear her because I thought that was so original. I didn't know anybody that was doing specifically that sort of work. And that's when I started realizing I'm kind of a rebel type. And, you know, the more you study the guidance, oh dear, they're limiting us. We have to just do such and such. And she kind of opened my eyes to the more you study the guidance and try to follow it, the more it frees you to look for your own individual talent on how to plug in to the plan. And I just was quite impressed by her that she found, you know, she found her individual talent, which was huge, of course. And it really meant a lot to me to see her doing that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Fran, please.
Well, one of the things that attracted me to this book, and I wasn't able to get it all read, was the art of empowering others. I feel strongly about that. Teaching should be about empowering. So my question is, what kind of techniques did she use for empowerment of others?
Shall I try to answer that?
Please do. Please do.
Probably each person has an answer. I know Bahia does. I can only tell you what I learned or the impression. My impression, she had her personality, as Bahia described, which is delightful. She had all these people had very strong personalities. But one of her strong capacities was to see people according to their potential rather than their present being, and to believe that Baha'u'llah could transform them, and to believe that this old society was becoming something entirely different, and therefore so were the people. That was one, and I think Marta has given a beautiful description. Here's this child that became a Baha'i through her, and she brings her to be with her, with Rihia Khanum, because Gayle knew she was going to have to leave forever, or you know, for most of the time, from the country, and she wanted this child to feel this memory and closeness. She also, well, I think everybody probably has examples, but I think it's that kind of thing is, is what do we see in each other as we relate to each other?
In other words, relationships.
Relationships,
She
I think.
She had a skill for developing relationships.
Yes, yes. And I'll give you an example in the hospice room. I came one day to the hall and the door was closed. And so I wasn't sure what to do and just waited. And after a while, 3 nurses assistants came out and I sort of looked at them quizzically and they said, "Oh, we were just in there singing Spanish songs. Gayle loves Spanish songs." Well, she made, they won't forget that. And one of the ladies and I'm not trying to glorify or lift up, but I'm just sharing impressions people had. One of the workers at the assisted living where she was came to me after her funeral, because a whole lot of them came to the funeral, and said, "You have to understand, this is the closest we will come to being with Mother Teresa." Now, that's not the whole of her. She called Bahia 6 times a day, but there was also this. So who knows?
Thank you. That's really a marvelous answer and a very inspiring way of perhaps ending our descriptions of her. I'll turn it back over to Gisu.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So many beautiful stories. Well, thank you, Juliet, Tarasieh, and Martha for joining us today. And thank you to all the members of the book club for joining us. Rob, do you want to tell us a little bit about the upcoming programs at the Corinne True Center?
Yeah, I can mention a couple of things. First of all, on Monday, the 3rd of November, which is a week from tomorrow, a new course begins called Understanding Religion with Mujan Momen as the lead faculty member, with Peter Smith assisting him. They're going to be going through his book, Understanding Religion, published through One World. And it's going to be a nice opportunity to look at the world's religions, not one by one, but sort of thematically by, talking about mysticism, talking about scripture, talking about different aspects of religion this way. And it should be really quite an interesting course. So we're trying to encourage people to keep it in mind. Then we have 2 webinars coming up in November, and Perry is going to be talking about the origin and significance of Greenacre as a center of Baha'i learning on November the 9th. And we're doing this because it's the 100 and something 125th anniversary of the sort of the beginning of the Baha'i presence at Greenacre. So that's quite an exciting sort of milestone, you might say. And then on, then December 7th, Paul Hanley will be talking about his book Tarasieh, which is an account of this village in what is today Jordan. It was in the Jordan River Valley that Abdu'l-Baha founded. And this is where he raised the wheat that fed people during the famine of World War I. So it's really an amazing story about Tarasieh, and we're looking forward to that particular presentation. I should also mention that this coming Friday, we're going to have a webinar co-sponsored by the Corinne True Center, the Baha'i Studies Group at the American Academy of Religion, and the American Academy of Religion itself. And this is going to be a webinar through the American Academy of Religion's system. So all 12,000 members of the AAR are going to be notified of this particular webinar. It's going to be at noontime on Friday. And if you are on our mailing list, I'll be sending out a little notice about that shortly so that you can hear more about that.
Wonderful. So next month, we will be reading the book A Day for Very Great Things, The Lives of Howard Colby and Mabel Rice Ray Ives. And we will be joined by the authors Earl Redman and Erica Toussaint. Erica was on pilgrimage just a few days ago, and I met her there. And I had a chance to meet Earl Redman for the first time over the summer. So I know it's going to be a really, really great session. So thank you all so much. See you next month, and happy reading. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.